You know that feeling when it seems like something big is happening behind the scenes, but nobody's really talking about it yet? That's exactly where the Vikings are right now. While everyone is focused on training camp battles and who's going to make the roster, there are some interesting moves happening that could end up having a huge impact on this team's future. And the more you dig into it, the more it feels like this could be the start of something really important for Minnesota. So stick around, because there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye. Before we get into it, make sure to hit that like button if you're excited for Vikings football, and drop a SKOL down in the comments if you're riding with the purple all season long. A quiet front office adjustment has suddenly become one of the most fascinating developments surrounding the Minnesota Vikings, and if you look closely, it may reveal far more about the franchise's future than many fans initially realized. While most of the attention around the league is focused on training camp battles, roster projections, and breakout stars, the Vikings are already making significant moves behind the scenes that could shape the organization for years to come. And the speed with which these decisions are being made is what makes this story impossible to ignore. The biggest development centers on new Vikings general manager Nolan Teasley. According to the information discussed in the source material, the Vikings intend to elevate Andrew Healy and Trent Kerr as assistant general managers, two highly respected football executives who arrive with strong reputations and extensive experience. What makes these hires particularly intriguing is that they represent two different strengths that every successful NFL front office desperately needs. Healy is described as a highly respected football executive with a strong analytical background, while Kerr has earned recognition as one of the premier evaluators of talent. That combination should immediately grab the attention of Vikings fans. For years, NFL organizations have searched for the perfect balance between traditional scouting and modern analytics. Some teams lean too heavily on numbers. Others trust only the eye test. The franchises that consistently compete for championships usually find a way to combine both worlds. If Teasley believes Healy and Kerr can bring those complementary strengths to Minnesota, then this may be one of the most important developments of the offseason. Perhaps the most revealing detail is how respected Andrew Healy appears to be across league circles. An anonymous general manager reportedly stated that Healy deserves consideration in future GM conversations, highlighting both his experience and football knowledge. He was also praised for his analytical approach to roster construction. That is not the type of praise executives hand out casually. When rival executives begin mentioning someone as a future general manager candidate, it usually means that individual has already earned significant credibility throughout the league. For Vikings fans, that should create excitement because it suggests Minnesota is adding another highly regarded football mind to an organization already trying to position itself among the NFL's elite. What may be even more interesting is the source of these additions. Both executives are coming from Seattle, an organization that has consistently been praised for roster construction. Over the last several seasons, the Seahawks have built competitive teams with strength in key areas, particularly along the trenches and in the secondary. That connection cannot be ignored. Minnesota's defense under Brian Flores has already shown flashes of becoming one of the league's most dangerous units. Yet there remains a belief that additional talent in the secondary could elevate the defense to another level entirely. If the Vikings are bringing in evaluators who helped build strong defensive foundations elsewhere, the long-term implications could be enormous. The timing is also worth noting. Teasley arrived later in the normal general manager cycle, meaning fans did not immediately get to see his fingerprints on free agency or the draft process. But front office structure is often the first area where a new leader leaves his mark. By moving quickly and aggressively to assemble his own group of trusted executives, Teasley is sending a message that he has a clear vision for how the Vikings should operate moving forward. And that brings us to another question many Vikings fans have been asking. What happens to Ryan Grigson? According to the information available, the Vikings intend to keep Grigson within the organization, although his role is expected to change. Rather than continuing as assistant general manager, he is expected to remain involved in some capacity within the football operations structure. That decision will undoubtedly generate mixed reactions among the fan base. Grigson has often become a lightning rod for criticism whenever discussions about Minnesota's drafting history arise. However, one of the realities of NFL front offices is that outsiders rarely know exactly who was responsible for each decision. Draft picks, free agent signings, scouting reports, and roster construction involve numerous voices. Assigning full credit or full blame to one individual is rarely accurate. What matters now is that Teasley appears determined to reshape the power structure while still retaining institutional knowledge. That approach suggests he values continuity in some areas while simultaneously creating a new leadership framework around him. And if these moves are only the beginning, Vikings fans should pay very close attention to what comes next. Because sometimes the biggest off-season story is not the player acquisition everyone sees. Sometimes it is the executive move that quietly changes the direction of an entire franchise. What do you think about Nolan Teasley's first major front office decisions? Do you believe bringing Andrew Healy and Trent Kerr to Minnesota could help build a championship-caliber roster in the future? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell fellow Vikings fans whether these hires deserve more attention than they are currently receiving. But while the front office story is drawing headlines, the next major question facing Minnesota is much closer to the field. The roster appears largely set heading into training camp, and barring an unexpected addition, the Vikings seem prepared to enter the next phase of the offseason with the players already in the building. That means every practice rep, every preseason snap, and every special teams assignment could determine who survives the final roster cuts. And there are several names that Vikings fans should watch very closely. One of the most surprising names mentioned as a potential roster casualty is linebacker Ivan Pace Jr. Just a few years ago, Pace looked like one of the best stories in the entire organization. An undrafted free agent out of Cincinnati who quickly forced his way into meaningful playing time, he earned respect throughout the locker room because of the energy and aggression he brought to the defense. Vikings fans loved the way he played. He attacked downhill, played with relentless effort, and constantly seemed to be around the football. But the NFL moves quickly. According to the discussion, Pace's role diminished significantly after being benched following a game against the Chargers, and he never reclaimed a starting defensive role afterward. Instead, he became more of a special teams contributor, while younger talent continued to emerge around him. What makes this situation fascinating is that Pace may not actually be competing against other linebackers. The real battle could come down to overall roster construction. Do the Vikings keep an additional offensive lineman? Do they prefer extra secondary depth? Do they allocate another roster spot to a special teams specialist? Those are the kinds of decisions that can determine whether a player stays or goes, regardless of his previous contributions. And yet, writing off Ivan Pace would be dangerous. Brian Flores has consistently valued players who bring physicality, urgency, and versatility. Pace still offers those qualities. Injuries happen every year, and linebacker depth becomes incredibly important over the course of a 17-game season. If Pace can prove his value on special teams and continue showing the aggressive style that originally made him a fan favorite, he could absolutely carve out a meaningful role once again. Another battle that could quietly become one of the most interesting storylines of camp involves the punter position. The Vikings added veteran Johnny Hekker, one of the most respected punters of his generation. For years, Hekker was considered among the elite at his position, capable of flipping field position with a single kick and changing games through pure leg strength and precision. Normally, a player with that resume would enter camp as the unquestioned favorite. But that may not be the case. Undrafted rookie Brett Thorson arrives after winning major recognition during his final season at Georgia, and early reports from off-season activities suggest he could already be making a strong push for the job. In fact, there is discussion that he may currently hold an early advantage in the competition. If that proves true, it would represent tremendous news for the Vikings. Any team would prefer a younger, cheaper option capable of delivering starting-caliber production. If Thorson can outperform a veteran as accomplished as Hecker, Minnesota may have discovered a long-term solution at a position that often goes unnoticed until it becomes a problem. The defensive tackle room presents another difficult decision. Taki Taimani remains a player to monitor as roster projections continue to evolve. His playing time was limited last season, but when opportunities came, there were moments that suggested developmental potential. The challenge is simple. Competition is fierce, and NFL teams can only keep so many players at each position. The expectation is that Taimani could find himself battling Elijah Williams for one of the final spots available along the defensive front. Every preseason snap will matter. Every practice evaluation will matter. The margins become razor-thin when coaches and executives begin trimming the roster. There is also an intriguing situation developing in the running back room. The discussion highlighted a potential battle involving Deontay Claiborne and Xavier Scott. Claiborne has generated notable excitement, with teammates speaking highly of his ability and potential impact. Meanwhile, roster mathematics could force difficult choices if the Vikings decide to carry a limited number of backs into the regular season. Jordan Mason is expected to handle a significant workload, while Aaron Jones remains an important part of the offense. That leaves a smaller number of opportunities available for younger players trying to establish themselves. And this is where training camp stories are born. Every year, one or two players emerge from relative obscurity to force their way onto the roster. Every year, a fan favorite unexpectedly falls short. The next few months will determine which category these players ultimately land in. At the same time, optimism is building around several potential breakout stars who could elevate Minnesota's ceiling dramatically. Dallas Turner stands at the top of that list. The belief inside the discussion is that Turner could transform from a promising young defender into a nationally recognized name by the end of the season. After recording strong production and showing flashes when given larger responsibilities, expectations are beginning to rise rapidly. The reasoning is easy to understand. He is still incredibly young, continues to develop physically, and now enters another season with additional experience in Brian Flores' system. Those are exactly the ingredients that often precede a major breakout. And if Turner reaches that next level, Minnesota's defense could become one of the most feared units in football. But perhaps even more intriguing is what these conversations reveal about the overall direction of the franchise. A new general manager is establishing his leadership team. Young players are competing for roster spots. Former draft picks are fighting to prove they belong. Emerging talents are preparing to take larger roles. Across every level of the organization, competition is intensifying. That is often the sign of a healthy football team. Nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is being handed out. Every position must be earned. As training camp approaches, the Vikings appear to be entering one of the most important stretches of their off-season. The decisions made over the coming weeks will help determine not only who makes the roster, but also whether this team can take the next step toward ending Minnesota's long championship drought. Now I want to hear from you. Vikings fans, which player are you watching most closely heading into training camp? Do you think Ivan Pace Jr., survives the final roster cuts? Can Brett Thorson really beat out Johnny Hecker? And is Dallas Turner about to become one of the biggest breakout stars in the entire NFL? Leave your thoughts below. Make sure to like the video, subscribe for more Vikings coverage, and join the conversation as we continue tracking every development surrounding the Minnesota Vikings.